How many of you out there are Corpse Party fans like myself? I have been a fan for the past 3 years, ever since I downloaded the original game on the PSP. I've always loved the horror franchise, but there was some special charm about Corpse Party, even though it didn't follow standard horror game gameplay mechanics. I ended up playing the original game back in 2012, and when Xseed first announced that they were localizing Corpse Party Blood Drive, I worked on getting retro reviews done on the site for both Corpse Party and its sequel, Corpse Party Book of Shadows. Now the wait is finally over, and Corpse Party fans can see the finale of the Heavenly Host saga. Here is my official review of Corpse Party Blood Drive. You cannot play Blood Drive without first playing Corpse Party and Corpse Party Book of Shadows. There are spoilers for both games in this game, and if you don't play those games, then Blood Drive's story is going to be a confusing mess and you won't know what's going on. The second thing about the story is that I am going to keep this review as spoiler-free as I can, so even if you haven't played the prior games, you can still watch this review and not have the plot spoiled for you. 2 months after the events of Corpse Party Book of Shadows, there is spiritual unrest in the real world. There are a lot of accidents and deaths going on that a lot of people are shoving the blame to ghosts and other paranormal activity. At the same time, the survivors of the Heavenly Host tragedy, the events of the first Corpse Party game, are pulled into yet another plot involving them, their deceased comrades, as well as the hellish realm that they only narrowly escaped months prior. The story itself is really well done, as you would expect it to be. The horror environment really shows up well in this game. You get a lot of backstory for characters from the first game, as well as the new characters that are introduced in Blood Drive, and there are a ton of gruesome and shocking events. The entire second half of the story is nothing but shocking events one after another that you will not see coming. Corpse Party Blood Drive is a 3D adventure game with puzzle elements set in a horror environment. Imagine it like the original Corpse Party game, but a 3D Unity engine instead of a 2D RPG Maker engine. When you play through the game, you will have story events, and then you'll be able to explore the 3D environments, mostly with the goal of spawning more story events. To spawn the story events, you have to go to certain areas in a certain order, or you might need to collect key items to puzzle solve to open up the area you need to go to. When you're exploring these environments, in the original game you just walked around and sometimes avoided a story-based ghost as you went along. In Blood Drive, there's a lot more to consider here. One of the main new hazards in the game are traps. On the floor, there are various traps laid out in the game that you have to avoid. These can be cracked floors that you can fall through, piano wire that's set up for you to trip on and get hurt by, which is a huge reference to a certain scene from Book of Shadows, and spikes laid out on the floor that you can get hurt if you stand on. Avoiding these traps is done with the flashlight. Since the world you're in Corpse Party Blood Drive is very dark, you can barely see where you're going without the flashlight turned on. The only strategy involved here is that the flashlight doesn't have an infinite number of batteries. So you have to find batteries to be able to recharge it, and if your batteries run out, you won't be able to see traps that you're trying to avoid. The other hazard in the game are enemies. If you recall, in the original Corpse Party, there were some scenes where ghosts would appear in a room and you would have to avoid them to not get killed. There are elements like that here as well, but ghosts aren't just associated with the story anymore. There are various fleshy pools of blood around the hallways, and they can spawn ghosts that will give chase and chase you all around the school. Unlike the first game, when you leave a room, they follow you right into the next room. If you run up through the stairs, they're going to be right behind you. The only things that can really make them go away are running around and making them get stuck on a wall, or a story event spawning that takes you to another room. The only other ways you can get away from spirits are having talismans that will immediately dispel them and destroy them, However, talismans are very rare to find. The only other way are cabinets. If you're far enough away from a ghost, you can jump into a cabinet and hope that it passes the cabinet by and you can get out undetected. If the ghost is too close and sees you go into the cabinet, they will rip the cabinet open, throw you out, and attack you. So this really adds a lot of tension to the game. You're not just wandering around looking for key items, you're wandering around looking for key items while you're avoiding traps on the floor and hoping that ghosts don't spawn and start chasing you around. Now, across the 10 chapters of the game, I logged about 15 hours of gameplay time. That is almost twice as long as the original game. If you add in the 8 EX chapters and over 40 endings to get, including all of the wrong endings for each chapter, you're going to be spending a lot of time with this game. As far as the presentation is concerned, the visuals look really nice. The anime style is there for sure, and the way the 3D models almost makes it look chibi style, but it's proportionate enough that it looks okay regardless. Problems with the presentation and my only issues with the game come from the load times and the frame rate. Loading sequences can be fairly long. We're not talking about 10 or 11 seconds, but going into and out of the menu can sometimes take longer than you would expect it to. Early on in the game, I opened up the menu. It took about 2-3 seconds to get into it. Then I closed the menu to go back into the game to explore more environments, and it took almost 10 seconds to go back. The frame rate also isn't a severe issue, but there are some frame drops in some areas. The flashlight furthers this. Many areas have frame drops when you turn the flashlight on, and then you turn the flashlight off and everything is fine again. Like I said, these aren't major issues, but they're noticeable nonetheless. Corpse Party Blood Drive faithfully brings all of the chills and bloody twists of the franchise to the PS Vita, along with the 2 prior games that are also compatible with the PS Vita. On the downside, there are a couple issues, as I said, with the frame rate and the load times, but past this, you'll find a tense and very deep horror game that no Corpse Party fan can afford to miss. PlayStation Vita Reviews rates Corpse Party Blood Drive an 8 out of 10. If you'd like to comment on this further, feel free to below or head to my site at vitareviews.net.